All right, another podcast from the Michigan Institute of Athletics in Brighton, Michigan. It's going to be a stellar podcast today. I'm really excited about this one. Right before we get into it, I want to shout out VetLife. VetLife is a 501c3 nonprofit company. It's a company of veterans for veterans. Every veteran faces difficulties when they transition from active duty back to civilian life, and VetLife is there to ease that transition. If you want to reach out to VetLife, you can do so through Instagram or Facebook, or check out their website at vetlifetoday.org. So without further ado, I want to introduce Mark Howell. Mark, I only know the absolute basics of your story, and I don't know if you've seen any of my podcasts. We're going to take your story the same way as everybody else. I don't want to know about the man that you are today yet. I want to take it all the way back.
Awesome.
I want to know, who were you as a young man? Where were you born and raised? What were the things that were influential to you, or what helped shape you into the person that you are today?
Wow, we're going all the way back. Okay. Well, awesome. Thanks for that awesome intro. Yeah, I mean, again, my name is Mark Howell. I'm here from Brighton, Michigan. So I've lived in Brighton, Livingston County my entire life. Went to Brighton High School, graduated Brighton High School in, 2001. So I'm a soccer player by nature, and been a soccer coach ever since the playing days ended after Western Michigan. So my wife and I are both from here, and now I'm happily married for 12 years. We've got 3 awesome kids. 10 is Gabriel. He's our oldest. And we've got twin boy-girl twins. They're 6, Luke and Lily. So life is busy. But growing up here, I come from a family of kind of a transition from blue collar to white collar. So I, growing up, watched my dad and our family really come from nothing and watched him just work his tail off, grind away. And it was when I was about 14 or 15. We built a house. We got the nicer cars. Kind of my foundation was built on the blue collar mentality and watching him work his butt off. And, then we kind of transitioned into a different path of life. And I saw how all that work really paid off for him and us. And, it just changed kind of the trajectory of our life. And they now live a much different life than we did then. I mean, I remember, the arguments at home over credit card spending and grocery bills being out of control, and my mom hiding away receipts like, oh, don't tell your dad, kind of the whole thing. My mom has a shopping habit, so it's, to this day, it's all of a sudden it's getting worse. But he's been really, my mentor, my biggest influence in my life, just kind of watching him and how he has succeeded, how he has brought about his success. It just really echoed throughout our whole family, and just kind of set the tone for who we are, I think, as men now. I have 2 younger brothers, Mike and Mitch. Mike is, about 18 months younger than me. Mitch is 6 years younger than me. So we're all very close to this day. And, everything he did was for us, for our family to have a better life. And, we're now able to look back, I think, and reflect on all that hard work that he put on, and hopefully let that translate into how we lead our families, our marriages.
Not to take this podcast towards your father's story, but I'm fascinated because, men like that and women like that make generational change, that something clicks within them, that they evolve into a completely different person than, maybe the story that's been passed along is, hey, this is how you live life, this is what you do. What did your father do initially, and what caused that spark? How did he go through that? Because most of the time it's a change that takes place in the mind. Something within somebody tells them, hey, there's a lot more for you out here. There's a lot more for your family. There's more that you can go get. You're not just going to be the 9 to 5, show up, collect your paycheck, go home, drink a beer, watch sports.
Right.
You're going to go to another level. What did your father do, and what do you think caused that change? Because I can tell those ripple effects just poured down onto you and most likely your brothers. And it did. It changed your family's lineage and your story moving forward.
Absolutely. So he grew up, one of 6. His parents were farmers in Hastings, Michigan. And he was kicked out of the house when he was 15. He was just a troubled young man. So he learned life the hard way when he was young. So he, I think had to establish, he had that hard work established from a young age, just being a farmer's, son. And from there, he just kind of had to grind his way through getting different jobs, really figuring out how to make it on his own. And once he got to be kind of like a young man, met my mom, I think he just realized that he just really wanted better for us. He wanted to provide a better life for his family. And so the best way he knew how to do that was he didn't go to college. He didn't have a lot of success through high school even. Education was never like his thing. And so he just believed in just getting your hands dirty and just doing the work. And so from day one, that's just what he did. And he worked harder than anyone I've ever watched work throughout his whole life. And that's what he was passionate about and poured into. And that's really, I think just a burning desire to provide more for us than his family was able to, just because of their profession and their way of life. And that was just something that resonated with him and, has really just kind of set us on this journey.
It's crazy how common that story is. Like the person that doesn't follow the well-worn path. Like
Right.
They struggle, they go off on their own path. The school of hard knocks smacks them around a bunch. Life beats them down, and then they rise from those ashes, like the phoenix from the ashes, anew. And all of a sudden, now they have the capability, the resilience, the grit, the determination to go and make it happen. I mean, it's like you hear that story so often. So that's a reminder to people that are struggling, or people that maybe your life is not unfolding the way that you expected it to.
Absolutely.
That doesn't mean that it's not going to be better. A lot of the times, the people that struggle the most come out on the other end substantially stronger than they would have ever been or thought they could have been, having gone through that struggle. So when you were a young man and you're witnessing this, you have a phenomenal male influence in your life. You kind of see like, hey, like my dad was a superhero to me when I was growing up, and it sounds like it was the same to you.
Absolutely.
You're able to look forward and be like, that is what I want to be like when I grow up. When you're getting through school, what did you think life had in store for you? Like, what did you expect to be? What job did you think you were going to go into? Do you remember in high school, like, if I would have interviewed Mark Howell, 15 years of age, what were you going to be?
Well, I mean, then I was going to be a professional soccer player. Life was...
So you were big into soccer.
I was big into soccer. Our whole family became a big soccer family. And
I was actually at 242 last night playing
Were
soccer
you?
because
There you go.
my aunt and uncle were a huge part of me growing up, and they were both. My uncle played in England.
Okay.
Aunt and uncle both played in college. And then
Awesome.
every kid, 5 of them, all soccer while that aunt and uncle coached. So soccer was like a massive part. Every time I was at my Aunt Diane's or Uncle Martin's, soccer was what we were going to do.
Oh, yeah. So they're probably always harassing you like, you don't need
100%.
martial arts. You need soccer.
Soccer is the truth. The World Cup is on. Shut down everything else. Yeah, 100%.
We're not watching this UFC stuff. We're watching the World Cup. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. So you actually thought, like athletics were a huge part of your life, it sounds like.
They were.
Let's talk for a second about how did athletics shape you? Because when you're an athlete, when you're a part of a team, when you have to learn winning and losing, when you have to train and, face defeat and then pick yourself back up, and you get that feeling of putting the ball in the back of the net, like that's a very, very powerful thing as a child. How did athletics affect you when you were young?
They really shaped, I think entirely who I am, just in my willpower and different things, how to navigate adversity. I kind of had my quote-unquote rise to success in soccer late. So I didn't even play on my first travel team until I was 13 years old, which was considered late for soccer. And I was a goalie. So I started late. I was, kind of became successful late. And so I had to put in, 3 times the amount of work just to get up to speed where everybody else was competing at. And so early on, I didn't make the teams that I wanted to make. I wasn't first string of this or that. And so I quickly watched that work ethic really take me to new levels. And I found success over the next couple of years and through high school. And, that took me on a path of like, okay, put in the work and you get these rewards and this is what happens. And that really just propelled me through high school to have a lot of success at Brighton. I went on to play at Western Michigan University, and that was a great experience. And then the playing days ended because I forgot along the way you still had to do scholastics, and school came first. I forgot that little key part of all the other work. And and so my life then just kind of took a different path into business, and the sports kind of transitioned from player to coach. And I've coached soccer now since 2004. At varying levels. I'm currently the coach at Brighton High School on the varsity boys side. So it's, coaching there at the school I graduated from. It's kind of a dream come true in a real, tiny little, bubble, but it's a great experience.
I'm glad to hear you say that because I mean, like, I take so much pride in this community of Brighton too. Because like all of my fight team is based out of here.
Yes.
All the community effort I do is based out of here. I do Reaching Higher with Brighton High School. I'm there constantly. I was there on Tuesday
That's
in
cool.
the Reaching Higher class.
I just came from Reaching Higher in Howell. There you go.
You
Look
see
at
what
that.
I'm saying? So it's like when you take pride in your community and you're given that type of love and energy back, like I think that's a huge part for people to remember too. And actually, my guest Monday, Adam Ollier, was referencing the fact that, the best men in life are the ones that we need to give back the most.
Yes.
Because it's like if life has been good to you or you've pulled, you've really had a great experience, you've learned tremendously, those are the mentors we need for the next generation if we're going to make other people's lives the way, that we're able to live, where we're very grateful, we're thankful. Life has worked out very well for both of us, and it's like I love to hear that you're like, that passion is still there. And even though I'm not on the field, I'm pouring that passion into my players and helping them get those same things that soccer gave me in my life. Because maybe Mark Howell without soccer wouldn't be a fraction of the man that you are today.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I look at it as soccer coaching. That's just like the soccer part. Like I'm more passionate about working with the kids and working with people and helping them mold and become good young men. And I just use soccer as the vehicle to do that because that's my familiarity. I can communicate through that sport to be able to do it, and it gives me the structure of this is how you make this work and a team work, and this is how you overcome successes and failures on the field together as a team and as individuals, and it's awesome.
100%. So you graduate from college, you get into your first career path. What was that? What did it look like? And then start to build me towards the story today where you run Fund a Life, which is a fantastic charity organization that I'm looking forward to speaking about in the community.
Yeah, thank you. So so in college, I kind of diverted from finishing out college and starting a business with my father and a partner of his. So it was a technology-related business. And so we grew that over the next 10 years. And through that time, we grew, we added people, we started from the ground up, me not having any idea what I was doing to, 10 years in, I'm talking to C-level executives of Fortune 500 companies. So it's, so with that came a lot of experience, a lot of failures, a lot of successes, and, some good travel, just meeting good people, being put in situations that you're uncomfortable with, you grow from it, and away we go. And so really through that time, I started to embrace the finer things in life and want and cherish. Probably now I can look back and say the wrong things, but I wanted the bigger house. I wanted the dream family with the big house and the nice cars and all of those things. And that's what really engulfed my mind. And that was really what I was working towards that entire time. And although I was still coaching soccer, lost sight of, maybe what really was fulfilling. And I kind of always felt a little bit of an emptiness, like I was meant to do more. I remember vividly always searching for like part-time jobs as like a firefighter or something where I was like, I want to give more. I'm meant for more. I don't know what that is though. And, it was always like just this little bit of emptiness and I didn't know how to fill it and, just kind of coasted through life.
Yeah, that's massive because I can't tell you how many people I know that have gone through that exact transformation, myself included, where you think that by the acquisition of these inanimate objects that fulfillment will come into your life. Like TV's told me my whole life that once I have this and that and I my life is this image or what you see on Instagram that I'm going to find what I'm looking for.
Oh, 100%.
And what you find is honestly, if you acquire those things, you are more likely to become depressed and feel more empty because now you were telling yourself the only thing that's missing is once I get these things, I'm going to feel the way I want to feel.
Yes.
Now you get those things and you almost feel more broken because it's like, wait a second, this didn't change anything. If anything, it made it worse.
Yeah.
The beauty of that is it leads you full circle back to, wait a second, when I'm doing what I love to do, and I'm making a difference and I'm helping other people, that's when I feel my best. Maybe there's a way I can dedicate my life to the service and building of others and also have a, nice life. That's the answer. Yeah. And it's funny because as you're telling this story, the gym slogan here is from the ground up.
Awesome.
And
I love it.
When you were saying coaching is the vehicle through which I help people with personal development. It's the same thing. I'm just looking at the soccer version of myself.
Sure.
In the way that is where I found fulfillment and where I found purpose and I found meaning. And when you see somebody else, you know what it is when you can show someone a mirror of their potential and then they can achieve that potential and they can push themselves and they can be what you believed they could be even before they did. It is the most amazing feeling that I've never been able to replicate in any endeavor. And it sounds like that's what you're speaking to. And the beautiful thing is the moment you find that, it puts you on the right path. You almost go, there was all these paths, and I thought maybe I should go left, maybe I should go right, maybe I should go straight. Wow, what I've needed to do all along was live a life of purpose, give to other people, and squeeze the juice out of this thing as much as possible. So as you start to realize that, where does Fun to Life come from? How does that story start?
Sure.
How far along are you with your family at this point, etc.?
So at this point, I had met Christina, who's my wife now. And, so we get married in 2010. And, hey, let's have a family. So in 2012, we're expecting Gabriel, our firstborn. And he comes along October 16th. Everything's great. And I had been having some pains abdominally at the time. And so some follow-up appointments, 2 weeks later, basically I'm delivered the news that, we found a large mass in your stomach. I'm like, well, what's large? And they're like, well, this is like a football. I'm like, well, what do you mean a football? Like literally the size of a football is in your abdomen. And that's what the pain is. And you have a large cancerous mass. And good luck finding a surgeon, but that's what you need. Good luck finding a surgeon that's going to actually operate. We estimate you have, based on the size and how rapidly it's growing, you've got about 6 weeks to live. So all within the month of October, we're delivered.
What timeline is this? Like what year?
This is October 2012. So we're delivered with obviously the birth of our child. We're all amped up. I'm going to be super dad. Life is great. And within weeks, I'm told that I'm going to be dead by Christmas, essentially. And so we start seeking out miracles. We're looking for a surgeon that might undertake the impossible. We find one up in Flint, at McLaren in Flint, and he's like, well, this is you're probably not gonna make it through the surgery, but this is your only option. And we're like, well, then there is no option. Like if this is it, like let's go. So ended up being an 18-pound mass in my abdomen, almost a 20-hour surgery, of which they came into the lobby multiple times, like, what we just did was a Hail Mary. We've never done it before. And that happened about 4 times throughout the course of the surgery. So you can imagine my poor wife, my parents, everybody just like, what is going on here? Our entire world is turned upside down. And so, spoiler alert, I'm still here. So I made it through that Hail Mary surgery, several weeks in the hospital, even bigger recovery afterwards. And so we make it through the holiday season and we go back in for some baseline scans to okay, we feel like we got it all. Things are good. Maybe we've gotten back to a point of like baseline 0. What we just saw and what we operated on, we've never seen before. We need to figure out a treatment plan going forward. So let's get some more scans done. And lo and behold, I already had 5 baseball-sized tumors already grown back. So the surgeon now is like, I'm baffled. I've never seen anything like this. This is completely off the charts. You need to seek out bleeding edge treatments across the country. You might have to go overseas. You have to do stuff that's not FDA approved. It's just not available. And we're like, okay. So we started looking into what was that going to mean financially for us? What was that going to mean, with our insurance? And at the time, all of our insurance was wrapped up through my wife, who worked at a regional hospital. And they delivered us the news that they weren't going to cover anything outside of the network because they had the means to quote unquote handle my situation there through traditional medicine, chemo options and things that frankly weren't going to work. And so the community got wind of that. A couple community leaders, Barb and Mark Binkley in Brighton, Don and Sandy Cortez in Howell. And they said, no, screw that. We're going to raise as much money as we possibly can. And they started an effort where they raised about $200,000 over the next 18 months for my family and I. And we started traveling. We went everywhere. If you name the cancer clinic, I've been there. In over 3.5 years, we traveled, we found solutions or things that just bought me time to get to the next thing. And we were delivered countless times with, I remember once very vividly, this was 3 treatments in, 3 different types of treatments in. Each one had just kind of bought me like a couple months. You know, we'll try and shrink it. We'll try to maintain it. Things were just rapidly growing. And we finally have found a trial at U of M, and it was a randomization trial, but the previous 10 patients had been randomized into the chemo arm. I was going for the other drug. And so the stats were all in my favor. You should be delivered this. And this was like the drug that was very promising. And so we go in for the randomization, and I remember it like it was yesterday. And I'm sitting there with my wife and my mom, and the doctor comes in. Mark, I have some really disappointing news. You've been randomized into the chemo. And I remember instantly my mom and wife saying, you cannot do this. Like, this is not going to help you. And through this whole thing, I had a massive faith awakening and faith journey throughout the whole thing too. And I just kind of turned it all over and said, I'm just going to trust in the path. There's nothing, I control 0% of this. All I can do is choose what my attitude is going to be, how I'm going to respond to this, and how I'm going to go forward. And so I just looked at them and I was like, guys, if this was the path, we have no other options. So if I'm supposed to get the chemo, then I'm supposed to get the chemo. And I went forward with the chemo. It bought me a few months. And out of nowhere, a new trial then opened up in Jacksonville several months later. And I started traveling back and forth for the next 18 months, every 3 weeks by myself, because you can only imagine how expensive that is. And, that was now 6 years ago. And I'm now 6 years cancer-free. So I went from 6 weeks to 6 years cancer-free. And that was, it's been a 10-year journey of just absolute craziness.
That is absolutely insane. To be staring death in the face is what you were doing on
Literally.
a regular basis, being like, I might not be here for my wife and children. And you got to a point where you just had acceptance. You got to the point where you said, it is what it is, and I just have to walk the path that is in front of me and control my attitude.
Yep.
How dark did it have to get before you... It sounds to me, what I'm picturing is like you just completely let go of like, man, I'm tired. I've tried all these things. Yeah, we wanted it to work out this way. I found myself here. It is what it is. I'm just going to move forward. That moment, in a weird way, although it sounds so terrifying, it was probably also very freeing for you.
Absolutely.
It's like you almost had to, you let all the weight, because I'm picturing Mark, the father, the husband, all these things, and you're carrying the world on your back like Atlas. And then you went, you know what, I got to set the weight down and I can just show up as Mark and do the best that I can do. And
early on, I made a choice early on, right when I was diagnosed. My mind's, obviously you sit there and you absorb. And my decision early on was, okay, like you need to feel the emotions, and then we just need to move on. Like, there's no dwelling. That's not going to do anything. And I made an active decision, and obviously it wasn't fully my decision, but at least mentally, was my son cannot grow up without a father. That's not an option. So there's no quit. There's no end. And, there's a reason that we had 2 miscarriages before Gabriel was born. There's a reason he was born precisely when our world came tumbling down, to give us that light to focus on. And that was the one thing, that gave me, okay, like, no matter what the news is, you have a son that you need to get back home to. You have a son you need to live for. And that was the focal point. And so that helped me get through dark news, dark times, disappointment, failed treatments, failed surgeries, countless trips to the hospital that they just sucked. The whole time sucked, but you just had to embrace it. And there were many times where, I was just an a-hole at home, or I was, I felt like crap. And my wife would just spend countless hours researching options for me. And, most people don't know that you have to be your own advocate. They just kind of assume, hey, like, I'm going here, and this chain or this hospital or this doctor knows everything that there is to know, and they're going to put me down this path. And you quickly learn that everyone does their own version of whatever those things are that are available. And if you're not doing your own research, you just don't know. You just don't know what else exists. And hospital A might be doing very different things than hospital B. And so we learned that quickly. And my wife has been a godsend and an angel through that whole thing, just being patient and supportive and doing all the legwork so that my whole focus during that whole time was live. And that was it. You know, the people rallied around us to allow us to focus on, so that we didn't have to focus on anything financial, and we could get through that, because more times than not, that's the thing that then cripples people, you know, from getting through whatever the said obstacle might be.
Man, what an incredible story. And the way you're saying that, like, you couldn't have found the strength, well, maybe, but, like, trying to find the strength within yourself to do that.
I couldn't have. I would love to think that I could, but there's no way.
Sure, we all want the heroic story where, you know, when everything is gone and the lights are turned off and you're face down, that you could just pick yourself up. But you had that son and you had your family to keep living for, to get back up, to, like, you had something within your heart and soul that was powerful enough to keep you moving each day forward. I'm, like, almost tearing up on this episode because I'm picturing myself in that moment and just, like, the type of courage that it takes. You know what I mean? And, like, and referencing your son Gabriel, like, being basically like the guiding light, pulling you into the future when you almost couldn't pull yourself. And here, you're sitting here today. Like, you beat this.
Yeah.
You guys found solutions, and you found it in a trial, it sounds like. And cancer is, like, such a plague upon society. I have one of my main instructors here, his name is Brian Fornicero. His brother, as 33 years of age, he's going through a terrible stomach cancer right now. He's on his, I think, 5th round of chemo. Yep. They did 4 rounds of chemo. Then they gave him surgery. Now they're putting him on another round of chemo.
It's crazy.
It's absolutely insane what this kid is going through. And you know what? I see his pictures. He's smiling. He's putting a thumbs up. He's there with his girlfriend by his side, and he's just trying to fight through. And it's like, you know, God, I hope we get to the point where we have a solution for cancer that is much better than chemotherapy and, you know, just sapping the body into nothing, and hopefully that gets you by. Like, I don't know what the survival rates are in chemo, but I know it's not good.
All different cancers, you know, and they are making a ton of progress, you know, with different therapies and such. Actually, the drug that cured me was like immunotherapy. So without getting too technical, it basically equips your immune system to recognize, detect, and then ramp your immune system up in a hyperactive mode to fight off cancer cells. So
why isn't that the norm, though? Because, like, when I consider what you would want to do, you'd want to make your body stronger to then detect and fight the problem, versus chemotherapy. You're basically blasting everything, and hopefully we can get the cancer before we've gotten you.
Sure. Well, I think, you know, they're trying to use that as the foundation for a lot of different medicines. They're finding some chemos are more sensitive to it than others. Others are more just rigid, and they're, you know, they don't react in a positive nature to the immunotherapy. So it's, you know, I think a lot of research is pouring into that type of research, though, to how do we boost somebody's system? Because the one thing I learned along the way too is everyone has cancer cells in their body at all times. It's just, you know, you might just naturally kill them off, and away you go, and you're quote unquote cancer free. And my body is susceptible to what ended up being melanoma, which was super rare. Normally it's a skin disease, and mine was all internal tumors. They never found a spot on my skin. So, you know, had multiple surgeries to remove different clumps and baseballs and different things, but you know, over time, here I am.
I had no idea that everybody has cancerous cells at all times. Like, when you just said that statement, I've never heard that in my entire life.
Isn't that wild? Yeah.
It's just like your body knows how to detect and defeat them normally. Like, your immune system is constantly regulating to make sure that these things don't get out of hand. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And the other thing too is the genetic makeup of the cell kind of dictates what type of cancer it is. But you know, cancer is really in its raw form just any sort of unidentified cell in your body. So, like, we have at any time, like, cancerous cells just floating around. And I'm like, I don't know, I'm not smart enough for all that stuff, but it's kind of like you go down a rabbit hole of, like, whoa.
So basically, and like I said, I don't want to dig down this any further before we shift to the Fun to Life chapter, but basically any unknown mass or growth of cells would be considered cancer then by your definition. Is that accurate?
I guess that's my understanding of it. Yeah,
well, I mean, you've definitely gone through a lot of the journey, but yeah, that's fascinating. So it's like, if it wasn't, you know, a cell that we easily identify that's supposed to be there, and it just shows up, you're like, oh, well, that's cancer.
Yeah. Now let's identify what type of cancer it might be. You know, it's
100%. So let's shift to, you make your recovery. And
Yes.
which, first of all, how do you ever get that demon out of your mind that like you actually are recovered? Because a lot of people, even athletes in here, when you take a bad injury, it's not even just the injury that you have to battle through. It's the fear that is associated with that injury that like you're not through it yet, that it's going to come back, that you're going to have more problems. Was that a struggle for you at all? Or were you actually able to like, hey, the chapter of Mark fighting cancer has closed and now I'm getting back to my family life? Like talk about that transition and then
Sure.
where does Funda life come into the picture?
So I did struggle with the transition, but maybe in a little bit different way in that scanxiety is kind of a real thing. That's kind of a term that we use in the cancer world. It's like anytime you go in for a scan, I'd be lying if I didn't say like, you're not a little bit nervous. Of course you are. Like, you're hoping for good news and all those things. But in between, like even now, like I don't worry about it. It's not on my radar. I feel like I know my body really well through this whole process. And I've just kind of given up that control over, I can't control that. All I can do is control what I'm doing with every day to make it last. My new, focal point was, it was to raise Gabriel and everything else. And now I have a little girl. I want to walk her down the aisle one day. Like, so it's like, no matter what happens between now and hopefully when she's like 25-ish years old, I need to get there to walk her down the aisle. And that will be life complete. Like you take me then, like, that's all good. Like then my job's done, so that's kind of, that's what I struggle with now is just those type of concerns. And I worried in the transition, there was maybe a 2-year gap where I felt like for so long, my sole purpose in life was live, beat cancer. And when that's over, when it's like, oh, you're cancer free now, it's like, awesome. And, you have a minor celebration and then you're like, well, now what am I doing? Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to focus on. And so within that time, there was like a lot of, I don't want to say depression because that would be really blowing it out of proportion, but like definitely like a little bit of lostness of I'm not sure. I'm just not sure. I'm not sure what I'm doing. Just lack of purpose.
That actually makes perfect sense. When you identify to something, whether it's, a cancer survivor or like you are Mark Howell, the man that is trying to beat cancer. That becomes your story. And people like deeply attach to their stories. Like you see it with veterans, you see it with even NFL players or like sports players. If your life has an identity and then that identity comes to an end, that's a very bizarre period of your life where it's like, wait, now it's what's next?
Right.
What is my purpose now? What is my objective? I was getting out of the bed, every morning going like, I'm here to beat cancer so I can be there for my son. Let's fight.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden it's like, what's the fight? Like,
right.
Where's the target? You see that happen to people a lot. And it's extremely common what you just discussed where they will fall into a depression-like state because it's just like you haven't found that next, like, okay, what is my big conquest? Human beings are best when we are battling something, when we are climbing a mountain. Human beings are not best when we reach our destinations. And that's what a lot of people don't realize in life is they think the happiness, the fulfillment, they think it's going to be when they get to the end. Really, where you are at your best is when you're in a fight, is when you are climbing a mountain. It's when you are trying to achieve some task that might seem beyond reach to other people. That is what brings out your greatness. My favorite motivational speaker of all time, Les Brown, used to say, what you become in the process is more important than the dream. And that's what it speaks to, is what you can become during a fight or a journey or a quest or whatever it is far more important than actually hitting the destination the way that you envision it.
Yes.
Because the person that you will become, the resilience you'll develop, just the mindset I'm hearing on this podcast of like, you had to relinquish control. Like that's kind of like ties into like the religion of Buddhism, where you can only control what you can control, which is what you are and is yourself. And everything else, you almost have to relinquish the idea that you are in control because you're not. And that is the most terrifying thing in the world, to be like, I have almost no control over anything in the world but me.
Right.
But when you get to that point, it's freeing.
It is freeing.
On the other side of fear, it's freeing. And it's like if more people had to go through extremely dark struggles or stare into the abyss, look into the face of death, they might come to that realization, and it's a freeing thing for your life. You'll be a better man after. You're going to hug your family and love your wife and your children deeper than you ever had before that moment where it was just Mark chasing some goal. Now
Right.
it's like, man, my daughter will be walked down the aisle one day by her father. And that is like a single most important thing in my life to me, because I realized that it could have been taken from me.
Absolutely.
So how does Fund a Life start? And tell me about that project and program.
Yeah. So, through that process, my priorities shifted massively, going from wanting the bigger, the better, the more, the whatever, to I need to make my time count. And there were countless people along our journey that I witnessed firsthand not have the same support or resources available to them that had different outcomes. They're no longer here with us today. And I don't know if that money would have made a difference or not, but I definitely can tell you that holistically, the trips we were awarded, the money that we were granted, the support and the cards and the meals and all of that holistically definitely contributes in some major way of me being here today. And so I felt this obligation, this power inside me to, okay, if I can use all of that story and that journey to somehow tap into our resources just because of where we live and who we know and our network of people. And if I can blow that up to help people who, maybe don't have those same networks, they don't have those same capabilities, then I feel led to do that. And so Fund a Life was born out of that premise of I want to raise money so that we can help anyone facing a major life-altering circumstance of any kind. And our tagline is shining light in the darkest of moments. And that's what I want to do through our gifts. And so we started that foundation with, some small events, but fundraising, and then just simply having, are you a Michigan resident? And what is your major life-altering circumstance? It could be cancer. Many times it is, just because of the prevalence in our society. It could be death of the breadwinner in the family. It could be a house fire. It could be, your child is born with a medical emergency or major illness and it takes you away from work. And obviously you want to focus on that, but you can't afford to do it if you take time away from work. We want to help remove those obstacles so that people can focus on the things that are most important, to give them the gift of hope in those moments. And with the whole intention of hopefully changing the trajectory of some of those lives whenever possible. And they don't always end in sunshine and rainbows, but if we can do that in even one instance, or we can buy somebody a little bit of joy or remove a little bit of stress in some of those hopeless times, we want to do that. And we want to make it easy for them. It's too many grants and things are available, but they make it so hard and they make it so taxing on the people going after it, or you have to prove this or prove that. We wanted to, through our journey, what I mentioned before, like I wanted to make it available to them so that if they think that a dream vacation to Disney as a family is what they need, awesome. Like if they have cancer or life-threatening something and they qualify under that regard, like cool, you use it for whatever it is that you think you have to use it for, but I want to just make sure that the qualifications are there. And then that's up to you. You don't have to prove to me where you use those funds. That's your part of the equation, not mine.
100%. And it's because of your story. You said, listen, some of those trips, some of the times where I could get some stress out of my life and just be with the people I love, you empathize. You truly understand the difficulty. And let's say, it's kind of dark to say this, but if the right people weren't around you in your life and you didn't have your support system and you didn't have the people backing you, Gabriel might have grown up without a father.
100%.
And you might not be here today. We may not be sitting here and telling this incredible story. So when you have that type of experience and that type of background, you can empathize much deeper than someone that's just like, hey, put funding together to help people that are struggling. And, as long as they pass all the qualifications, we'll see if we can get them the right funds. You're like, no, like you don't know what could be life-changing to someone. That one trip might be they got out of being completely broken and crippled and stressed and their family is, just done. And maybe that one time walking down the beach, maybe that's where they find that acceptance. Maybe that's where they say, you know what, I can only control me. I'm going to try to be here for my son or my daughter. You know what I mean? And you get it. And those are the type of people that should head these organizations, because not to take this a negative direction, but there's a lot of nonprofits out in the world that like you said, they put so much red tape and so many obstacles and so many problems, and the way they select people is suspect at best. And you're like, it's incredibly unfortunate because the entire purpose, like if I'm donating to a cause, I want to believe that the people at the top are going to do everything when they're within their power to help the correct people in that process.
Right. Absolutely.
And I want to believe in you and your in Fund to Life, knowing that you've gone through it. That's
Right.
like, you know, knowing that you were a lifelong passionate soccer player who it changed your life for the better.
Yes.
Makes me feel so much better that you're the coach at Brighton High School.
Right.
You know
Thank
what I'm saying? You're not just some
Right.
guy that goes, hey, I can get paid a little bit of extra
Right.
money. I can go coach this team. And, you know, if we win, we lose. You want the people that really their stories align with the mission. And that's where the beauty in life comes from. So let's talk a little bit more on Fund to Life, where
Yes.
how do you raise funds for something that is, I mean, treatments for cancer and the medical industry in general? Like when you were saying, listen, we might have to go out of the country. We might have to, it is an incredibly difficult process. How do you generate enough support and attention? And do you hold fundraisers once a year? Like when people listen to this story and they see the man on video that is backing this movement, how do they get to these events, or how do they make the right contributions so that a program like this flourishes?
Right. And that's a great question. I mean, the reality is, I think that the need will always outweigh the resources available, unfortunately. You know, I would love to say differently, but I would be lying to you. And so with that being said is, you know, we are limited in our resources, but we're only limited by the amount of generosity and support that we receive. And so I can tell you that right now we're able to fund about a third of the amount of applications that come in. We have a grant review committee that vets them and makes sure that they qualify and that they're the right fit and they fit our mission. And then we try to be as diligent as possible about, okay, will our gift, you know, make a difference? Is this able to make an impact with them? You know, some people are just in such a huge need that we can't really even touch the surface. And I hope that one day that could be different, but right now that's not the case. And so, you know, we have different events throughout the year. They can all be found on our website, fundtolife.org. We do a 5K race. We do a Drive to Survive car rally event. That's kind of cool. We do a big Giving Tuesday effort. And then we sprinkle in other events throughout the year as well. But we're always looking for more major mission partners to kind of get behind our mission, that really say, okay, you know, we see the mission, we see where you're going, we see how you're trying to reach more people. You know, here's a much larger contribution, and count us in on an annual basis. You know, so it starts to allow us that freedom to think a little bit bigger than event to event. How do we take that money and make an impact? So we're always looking to do more. We're very young. I quit when I went back to the workforce, I took a stab at running Visiting Angels for a few years and working with seniors because I wanted to work with people. And in 2020, right before the world shut down, I made at the time, the very wise decision to quit that job and really go all in for Fund to Life, because it became apparent that if it was going to grow and really have any sort of success at all, it had to be me doing it 100%, not 50%, not 10%, not in my downtime. I didn't have time to grow that need as a hobby and wait for me to make my money and then pour it into a nonprofit. It had to be now. And so I took that leap with the support of my wife and a lot of convincing. And so, you know, for the last 3 years, that's what we've been doing. We're raising as much money as possible, giving as much as possible away. Last year we awarded just under $300,000 across 33 different grants to various Michigan residents, most of which are right here in Livingston County. And, you know, we're looking to just impact more and more. And that's served over 300 people. So family members, families, groups, organizations, different things that fit within our mission. You know, we're always looking to expand that network. We're always looking to pick up different fundraising ideas and different efforts and different partners to come alongside the mission.
Well, man, it's great to hear. And as with any organization, you are 100% right that the person at the helm has to go all in. Like you've got to go all in if you really want to bring this thing to what it should be in life. And I love to hear that you're doing that. And you probably have a great team of people around you, because it requires more than just that passion. It requires structure and planning and
Yes.
and really trying to figure out little nuances of what are the right moves to get our mission in front of the people that will make a difference. Because if everyone could sit down and have this conversation with you, I feel like they'd be on board. They'd be like, hey, how do
Right.
we contribute if we are successful and doing well and things have lined up well for us in life? Like, how can we give back to other people? So if you look to the future, like
Yes.
3, 4, 5 years, what's the roadmap for Fund to Life? Like, what is, if everything lines up for you, 5 years from now, what does Fun to Life look like? Do you plan on it being across the entire state of Michigan? Do you plan on taking it nationally? Like, what do you kind of see as the roadmap that you're aiming towards?
The plan is definitely to have a really strong footprint in all the, we'll call it major markets throughout Michigan, so that we not just have a presence remotely, but there's some kind of physical on the ground presence, so people know and feel those people on a regular basis. And it's not just, I want Fun to Life to outgrow the Mark Howell story. It needs to be Fun to Life's mission, and that's for it to be really successful long term. Livingston County, I might be able to get some support because people know who I am. But at some day down the road, if we're going to leave this behind and it's going to help, tens of thousands of more people down the road, it needs to be much bigger than anything that I'm doing. And so the only way to do that is to just get more people passionately involved. I could see it at some point down the road because there just seems to be no other organization that has a very generic way of viewing crisis moments in life and wanting to get behind making an impact directly in those families' lives when it's needed. And so many organizations that do great work, they pour their money and their time and their resources into research, and that has to remain. But there needs to be a stopgap. There needs to be something that closes the gap so that people can be ignited in hope. And so many people just, they can't see the hope. They need that gift. They need to be pulled up when they're falling down, and they need that assistance, just like I was given. And, just told that, hey, like, you can do this. We're behind you. Here's a win in the midst of your losses. And so I could see it going national, down the road. And that might be far after I'm gone. Hopefully I live to see that day come. But, the goal is just to go as big as we possibly can so we can impact as many people and we're not restricted by an area or a location. Because ultimately people need help everywhere.
Man. 100%. I'm on board. I think clip that segment right there, throw that online, and why should I back Fun to Life? You perfectly pitched it. And the crazy thing is, throughout this entire interview, especially through this process, I hear Mark the coach. I hear the man that is dedicated his life to pouring into other people. And that's what you want. You know what I mean? That is the type of leadership that people should get behind and support, because that's genuine. That's authentic. That was the first word you and I used before we started filming. As I said, I'm all about authenticity. When you walked in the door today, we were complete strangers. I knew your name was Mark Howell, and I knew that you were a part of Fun to Life. That's it. And by the end of this conversation, the authenticity that's taken place has me like, man, I'll back that guy 100%. And I'm very proud to hear that you're in the community serving people. So I guess I'd love for you to do like one little pitch to all the ways to get in contact with Fun to Life, the way to track the events, anything you have coming up. Just kind of really plug anything that you would like to do, and then we'll wrap this episode up. And it's truly been an honor to sit here with you today.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Thank you for all the kind words and the support and having me on. This has been awesome. Getting to know you has been awesome. This is our first time we're meeting, like you said, and I feel like we're lifelong buddies. So that's really cool. You can find us on all the major, social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, even though I'm never on it. But you can find us there at just funtolife.org. You can find us on our webpage, funtolife.org. You can reach out to me, my email, mhowell@funtolife.org. They can even, my phone number is readily available all over the place, so they can find me. I'm very actively involved. I have one other full-time employee that we just brought on last month, and a lot of other key volunteers. So I'm in the trenches on a daily basis. This is what I live and breathe and love. And we've got, kind of a calendar of events coming up. We've got Drive to Survive coming up. So for car enthusiasts or dealerships or people that love cars, have nice cars, want to get involved in something car related, it's a cool rally from Lingenfelter to M1 Concourse in Pontiac, and then we race around the track. We have a bunch of fun. You see a lot of cool supercars, exotic cars, classic cars of all kinds. And that's coming up June 25th. They can find that again on our webpage. We have this year our 5K is going to be look a little different. We're going to be doing a standard 5K, but then also like an obstacle, kind of like Mount Brighton used to hold, the Dasher Crash. Because of the Main Street construction, it forced us to get a little creative. Normally we went from Brighton High School through downtown. Now we're going to have it at Mount Brighton, and we're going to try and pull off some obstacle stuff. I am not handy or a builder, so I'm still sorting my way through what that looks like. That's going to be July, I believe it's 16th. It's that Saturday. I always want to say 15th, but I believe it's the 16th. And then we've got our annual golf outing in September 18th at Oak Point. We sell out both courses. It'll be huge. It'll be massive. That's just a super fun day. And then we'll have Giving Tuesday, which is kind of like a give-a-thon type day. We go live from the Brighton Coffee House all day long, and we just rally the troops, or rally support. We typically issue a few grants that day too. So not only are we asking for support that day, but we look to actually help support others. And so we kind of bring it full circle all on the day of, which just makes it a little extra fun. Oh, and how can I forget right now? We have a raffle going on right now for a $10,000 shopping spree at Cooper and Binkley Jewelers. So we're selling raffle tickets for that, $200 a piece. Only 100 tickets will be sold. So that's a real fast and easy way. We pull that ticket on April 13th. So kind of a full gamut of events, and we'll be sprinkling in probably some little stuff throughout the year as well.
Well, man, like I said, I'm on board. It was an honor to sit with you today. I feel like you've really done a phenomenal job of representing why people should back you in the organization.
Thank you.
That's why I try to capture the story, because at the end of the day, like, if I just ask for a sales pitch, that really doesn't mean anything to me.
Sure.
I want to know about who is the person that I'm actually supporting. And, it was an honor. I hope that the audience and guests love this episode. And, just anything you need in the future, feel free to ask. And thank you again for joining me today.
Thank you. The honor is mine. Appreciate it.